Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I'm in over my head, stuck in the red. Something she said is making me feel I'm in over my head, over my head.
And I'm Gary.
And I'm Geoff.
And today we're going to review and discuss Titan A.E, which came out in 2000 from directors Don Bluth, Gary Goldman, and uncredited Art Vitello. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis for Titan A.E?
In the 31st century, scientists on Earth have created the Titan Project. This has gotten the attention of an energy-based alien life form called the Dredge, which has come along and obliterated the planet Earth. 15 years later, we follow Kale, voiced by Matt Damon, who sets out on a mission to find the Titan Project and hopefully restore humanity.
Don Bluth is pretty much a legend within the sphere of animation and animated films. This is an artist who at one point was outdoing Disney. Of course, his early career included work with Disney until he eventually separated. He ended up taking like 70 other animators from Disney,
Wow.
and they were called like the Disney defectors, who ended up forming their own studio and producing their own films. And I'm pretty sure anyone who's watching this video will have at least at some point been affected or moved by or experienced a Don Bluth film. The ones that come to mind for me are the likes of The Land Before Time,
Yeah.
All Dogs Go to Heaven, The Secret of Nim. Don Bluth would also work with Gary Goldman on quite a lot of these projects, including films like Anastasia. Although Titan A.E. had a pretty rocky start. 20th Century Fox were looking at making a live-action sci-fi movie. Although after a lot of money had been spent, up to nearly 20 million, they decided to scrap the idea and go into full animation. But before Don Bluth and Gary Goldman were brought in to direct, Art Vitello was the sole director for Titan A.E.
Yeah.
And 20th Century Fox were not really happy with the work that was being done and subsequently let him go. Although I've also quite appreciate Art Vitello's work. I remember him from Adventures of the Gummy Bears, Saturday morning cartoon. I'm a big fan of the real Ghostbusters, but Art Vitello worked on Slimer and the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
But he also worked on such cartoons as Tiny Toons Adventures and Tasmania.
Oh, I love Tasmania.
So you have quite a collective group here, and even though Art Vitello's not credited in the film, he did some of the work that he contributed towards the film is still in the final product. This film was also a critical and financial failure for 20th Century Fox. The film cost the studio over $100 million. And after the film's release, they fired nearly 3/4 of their animation team. And then just a few weeks later, actually closed down 20th Century Fox Animation in its entirety. And since then, Don Bluth has not made an animated film since, nearly 17 years. Which is a crying shame.
Yeah.
And you kind of think that maybe that his work with this studio kind of put him off ever coming back. However, Titan A.E. has since gained pretty much a cult following, primarily because of Don Bluth fans and because people have kind of grown to really like this film because of how little amount of marketing and promotion the film actually had. People kind of discover it on their own.
Does this look familiar? Do you know what it is? Neither do I. I made it last night in my sleep. Apparently I used Gindrogak. Highly unstable. I put a button on it. Yes, I wish to press it, but I'm not sure what will happen if I do.
I remember seeing this film in the cinema back when it came out. I watched it twice when it came out. I saw it the first time, and like you said, Don Bluth, the animated style, I was drawn to it. I was just like, yeah, I gotta see what this film's like. And after watching it the first time, I was just like, fuck it, I'm gonna go watch it again. Just because I'm a massive Don Bluth fan. American Tail. Who the hell can't sit for an American Tail and not kind of shed a tear when he's looking for his family?
But there are no cats in America, and the streets are paved with cheese. No, there are no cats in America, so set your mind at ease.
that was when Steven Spielberg actually realised the potential in Don Bluth and attached himself to that project, which really elevated Don Bluth at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I also tried to play Dragon's Lair when I was younger. Oh my god, that is a stupidly hard game.
It's also a game that almost changed the face of video games.
Yeah.
It was one of those games that turned pixels into full, understandable, recognizable pictures that were animated and moving.
Yeah.
There's nothing else like it in the arcades at the time.
And it also, the game itself also pressurized you, challenged you. You know, your reflexes had to be on board. You had to know what was coming to be prepared for it. If you didn't know, you were dead.
It was the beginning of QuickTime events and games.
Yeah. And I understand that, obviously, you know, when this film came out in 2000, a lot of people had kind of fallen off the bandwagon of animated films. You know, it was stepping more forward into CGI. You know, Pixar would be just around the corner, and God, we know what kind of movies they've made.
Interestingly, after 20th Century Fox Animation Studios were closed down,
Yeah.
the next animation studio that they would set up would go on to make the Ice Age series of films. So yeah, it was literally the transition into full CGI.
Yeah. And at the same time, this film, I don't know, for me, walks a very fine line between adults and children. I mean, literally right from the start, you know, we get that narration from Ron Perlman. You know, it's Ron Perlman, people, you know. And he details to us about, obviously, the birth of the Titan Project and the dredge turning up. And they don't hold back, these energy-based creatures. They will attack civilians trying to escape in ships, you know, and they literally obliterate the planet Earth. So in the first 5-10 minutes of the movie, you've just watched your home planet get destroyed.
Yeah, it sort of came out at a period of time when it was really good for sci-fi towards the end of the 90s and early noughties. And you had such classics like, for instance, the original Fallout came out, and you had all kinds of, you had The Matrix, which was just prior to it.
Yeah.
So obviously CGI was, you know, you had these like really advanced, all pre-rendered stuff like Toy Story, that had already been out for ages. But then you had, in the computer game scene, you had this kind of mix of pre-rendered backgrounds, which you could then do like kind of camera shots with and panning shots with. And obviously the actual sort of computer animation side of it wasn't quite there. So you've got this marriage, right in a period of time where you've got hand-drawn art being fused onto CGI rendered backgrounds in a story which is some classic sci-fi, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is a PG rated, but it's a little bit edgy as well, especially for the time for that level of rating. You know, there's some good moments of peril in it. People or aliens do get killed.
yeah.
And you know, it is quite a intense action film. I mean, it is a bit cheesy.
Yeah.
It's a bit cheesy and contrived to keep the action going and keep the pace going. But also at the same time, that is part of it, because you've got to keep that pace going. Otherwise, you could get boring. And you know, they set up a few good ideas, and then they just keep trying to give you new interesting scenes and keep the chases going from the dredge, because the dredge always seem to turn up
they're
at
always there.
Exactly the right or wrong time, depending on wrong for the characters, right for the plot progression.
I do like the world building that the film does towards the beginning, after we've seen the destruction of the Earth, which is a really good intro. That really kind of gets you comfortable in your seat to see where the story will progress from.
Yeah.
And then we're introduced to our main character of Kale, and we kind of get to see him sort of at work, sort of cutting up abandoned space debris and collecting junk.
But question, is he a salvager or a scavenger?
I think it's kind of both, in a way.
We would find out later on that, you know, he's been hidden by the weird little mole alien type creature Tech, and he's hidden Kale for 15 years because obviously Kale was the son of the scientist who designed the Titan project. Now, I don't mean this pun, but I will admit the characters in this film are a bit two-dimensional.
Well, it's just trope-tastic, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
everything in there.
Kyle is like Kirk almost, but he's also a bit of a, Jesus Christ saviour figure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
the whole thing rests on him. He's got this ring which brings up a map on his hand. It's genetically coded to him, so only he's got. I mean, I don't know why it seems like such a bad idea to put the map. I mean, what happens if Carl accidentally gets killed? That's it.
Kale.
Kyle. Yeah, what if Kale gets killed? Kale, that's like some sort of health food.
Yeah.
He could have at any time, because he's quite. They portray him in the beginning as being quite reckless as well, don't they? Because he's a typical cliche gung ho character. Like your typical American smart ass.
Yeah.
Who he's wisecracking, takes a bit of a risk, but he's a good boy. Really, his heart's in the right place.
Well, only to an extent, because he says several times, he's like, yeah, okay, you want me to go and do all this stuff for you, but if things get bad, I'm out of here. I'm not sticking around with you guys.
Yeah.
So he is out for himself, and the world that he lives in has kind of affected him that way. So he's not really the savior until he realizes, the what it actually means for humanity at this point.
Yeah.
They set him up so that he's like, he basically is saying no, and then actually does yes.
Yeah, he's a reluctant hero.
A
But
reluctant hero.
It's a familiar Luke Skywalker trope, isn't it? He sits there, Kale sits there at the beginning saying, I need to get out of here, this is doing my head in, I'm seeing the same four walls all the time. And then Corvo comes along and says, let's go, and Kale's like, eh.
They've really ground you down.
Hey, get this straight. I don't even know you. I don't want any part of your mission, and I don't need your help with these oversized morons.
Oh. Okay. I think he called you morons.
Corvo's sales pitch, he just turns up and says, you're the hero of the galaxy, come with me. And it's like,
I'm going to send you on a mission where you're probably going to die. And it's very unlikely that you will work, but let's go anyway.
Okay,
yeah.
But like you said, then all of a sudden the dredger there, and with all these things that we're nitpicking, I don't know about you guys, you just get lost in the voices. Akima calling over the radio, voiced by Drew Barrymore. She's calling over the code words to Corso. And Corso's voiced by Bill Pullman, and it's just like, we've got company. What kind of company? The bad kind of company. And it just sets up this whole action phase of anti-gravity in the kitchen, and then seeing the dredge in action.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, I really quite like the dialogue in this film, and it should come as no surprise that Joss Whedon had a hand in the script or in the story development. The film has, I think, 4 listed writers, or 2 for the story and 2 for the actual production script. Joss Whedon had the script for a little while, and I think he passed on to Ben Edlund, who then also passed the script back, and was just like, we don't really want this.
Yeah.
And I think the major problem with Titan A.E. comes to its main script writers.
You can definitely, I recognised Joss Whedon's influence, or the influence on this film on Joss Whedon's further stuff, but I also recognise the influence of Joss Whedon's sense of humour on the script.
You felt like it might have been the birthplace for Firefly. Very much so.
Yeah.
And I also see parallels in this to Star Wars Rebels, which is running at the moment.
Yes.
In terms of the small ragtag crew working together, against their own obstacles for the greater good. So the main 2 writers for the film, though, and this is where these are the 2 that I would throw under the bus for the downside of Titan A.E. And that is Hans Buer, who wrote the script for Anaconda and Anacondas and Titan A.E. And you also have Randall McCormick, who wrote the script for Speed 2, Scorpion King 2, and Scorpion King 3.
Oh, those are some amazing films you've got
And
there,
so
guys.
when you have those two that wrote Titan A.E. after Joss and Co. had kind of left it, you can see that Don Bluth and Gary Oldman didn't really have the best source material to work from, and also they're not experts really in science fiction, and it was something that they were also reluctant to attach themselves to. But if you ask me, this film is amazing to look at. The hand-drawn animations and some of the hand-drawn animated backgrounds complemented with the beautiful CGI backgrounds which were inspired or taken from Hubble telescope imagery.
Nice.
Which is when they realised actually how colourful the universe is, and let's find a way to put that into film in an animated way. So for me, it is the animation side of this film is fantastic.
Move it!
The writing side is, questionable.
Why am I naked?
Why, you positively glow with maternal warmth, Akima. It's very fetching. I must have you.
In your dreams.
The Krenians don't dream, remember?
They don't bathe much either.
The art style is very like steampunky almost as well, and so they've done quite well because I mean it clearly doffs its cap to the big Japanese anime sci-fi epics that went before it, and you've got that kind of like space cowboy type influence in this, like where it's everything's quite rugged, rusty, dirty, that sort of thing. It's that kind of vision of space, but the CGI like artwork that they did with it, like sometimes you think, oh, it looks a bit weird, the contrast between the animated characters and the backgrounds, like in some scenes on the ship. But also it really comes together when you've then got these panning camera angles, and then there are some scenes like where you've got they're in this kind of big kind of ice
nebula.
kind of
the ice nebula,
like a kind of nebula of ice crystals, which actually looks really good, even down to this day. It's quite low resolution, but the art style matched that low resolution, and they managed to pull off quite a good design of lighting and stuff like that, and it makes it look passable even today. So there's some moments of brilliance in there.
See, that's where I'd agree. It's like, I mean, what kind of script are you really going to put to an animated space movie? You want the hero to get to the end, to complete his mission, the familiar cliches and tropes. You're trying to sell it to children or young adults. You can't have far too many sex, violence, swear words, or blood and death. So you're kind of forced into this niche where people will sit there and go, but the script is terrible. But the fact that you've got, like we said, hand-drawn animations, then slapped onto pre-rendered CGI, the amount of work the guys went in just to construct this movie in its entirety. For me, I just go, I love Titan A.E. There are many reasons to hate on the movie, but there are so many little things in there that just build up to massive things that make me go, it makes me feel like a kid. It's very nostalgic. I love the sci-fi. I love the different alien races.
They've taken such a risk on the technical side, haven't they? And the overall idea of that sort of semi-CGI, semi-animated sci-fi story.
Yeah.
Which, yes, they had some indications that sci-fi was going to do well at that period of time, but it was still a risk because it's got that animated element. They're targeting it at kids, So they obviously, there's enough risks and enough trouble in the progression of it. You can see why they go, oh man, let's not take any risks with the plot lines and storytelling. Let's just do what we know works and get this thing out. So, I mean, with that kind of budget that they just flung on it as well, do you know what I mean? I bet somebody was wincing, hoping that it would make that money back.
Well, I think they were kind of banking on Don Bluth's name. And they didn't know how to promote this film. They didn't know whether to sell it to kids or whether to sell it to young adults. And when you look at the music that they used for the trailer, they used Creed.
Yeah.
Higher. And it's like, so who are you aiming this film for? Like young rockers?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
it's funny how some young rockers kind of found the film.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the soundtrack between Creed and Lit. You
Power
know,
Man 5000.
That's
is it?
yeah. It just keeps you going. You've got these heavy rock riffs
No,
going
no.
along in
Well,
the music background.
Now, I don't like some of the artists' music in this film. I think it's kind of pop rocky.
Yes,
And
it is pop rocky.
And so the pop rock nature does lend itself to the film. But for me, when I hear it, I kind of wince when I hear those songs come on in the film now. It's like, oh,
yeah,
really?
because you're an old man.
It's so Californian pop rock, and it
Yeah.
is. But
But
also,
that
it's
was
of
the
its
time. That
was
was the time.
Everybody
you know.
was loving that sort of
We
stuff.
love that kind of stuff. You could have slapped Avril Lavigne in this soundtrack, and
Blink
people would have
182.
loved it at the time. Nowadays, like you said, you'd gone, "Oh, that's not great," but you can't replace Lit with, say, Black Sabbath.
Oh, fuck it. Do it. Do it now. Roll clip.
I want to bring up the rest of the crew for Corso's ship. I mean, it's just the voice actors alone are never standing point in this film. You've got Bill Pullman playing Captain Corso. For ages, I always thought it was Alec Baldwin. I don't know why, but I realised it was Bill Pullman, and then I could just imagine him acting out the scenes.
It's the greatest
behind the
American
camera.
president ever.
Yeah.
Drew Barrymore's voice acting was weak, I thought.
Yeah, she nowadays she doesn't really match with her character. This Asian coloured hair kind of. I wouldn't say rebel.
She's meant to be tough and sassy, isn't she?
Yeah,
but she just comes off as a bit disinterested and boring. But
then when you compare that to like the first time they wake Kale up on the ship, and you've got Preed there. Voiced by Nathan Lane, the weird bat creature. And Preed is literally leching onto Akima. He is trying to lick her. He is trying to get her to sleep with him. The whole time you've got Matt Damon's animated ass floated in the screen. You're like you said, who are we aiming this film for? I'm going to explain to my 8-year-old why this alien's trying to lick this woman.
Yeah, I'm surprised they managed to get that away with, because PG ass in PG. That's, they must have been trying to push the censors a bit.
Yeah, but like you said, you're wanting to get that cusp of teenagers, 12, 13, 14.
It's definitely aimed at late teens.
And if they could understand it, then you can aim it for maybe 8-year-olds. You've also got John Leguizamo voicing Goon. I love Goon.
Yeah, me too.
It's just so fun to be around. That first scene where he's like, I made this in my dream last night. I don't know what it does. I put some very unstable material in it and I put a button on it. And you're like, what the fuck?
I love the sequence where he's talking to Kale and he licks his hand
Yeah.
and he tells him what he had for dinner. But he also tells him that there were droppings in there of the same meal of the creature that had eaten it before him. It's just like...
And then he just goes,
Yeah, just licks.
yum, yum, yum.
You've also got Janine Garofalo playing Stiff, the weird kangaroo mechanic.
I have to say that that character that you're talking about,
Yeah, the kangaroo one.
she's just had way too many knees. That was the worst drawn character or worst designed character out of all of them. She just had these enormous, totally impractical legs, which would have meant all her body weight was continuously levering against all her the joints in her legs.
Yeah, but she's an alien, dude. You don't know how her biology works.
Well, it was absurd. Basically, there was a couple of the creatures where they were just like obvious mashes of different animals, basically,
Yeah.
mashed together to make an alien. So there's a little bit of laziness on the alien design, I would say. But then the guy with the big eyes and the glasses, he was the E.T. like inspired character,
Definitely.
which with a beak. He was quite funny, and the design of the characters at the script writing level was, kind of let you forget how badly designed some of them were in terms of art.
Well, that's
style.
it. I mean, additional characters you're kind of just putting in the background because you want to focus on the three main. Akima, Kale, and Corso. And they would come across... Corso would activate the map in Kale's hand, and they would go to a planet which is right near Earth, or right near the moon. Sassari, I think it was called. And beautiful design planet. The crew are looking for the Gaul or the Gowl, who are these kind of weird, wise-looking bat flying creature
They
things.
were my favourite alien in the whole film because they remind me of the winged creatures from Beastmaster.
Oh God, back to Beastmaster again.
It's the way that they're like these bat creatures that are super sentient and smart and are there to help the humans, even though they don't really communicate it, conventionally.
Yeah.
And so convinces Kale to put his hand up to the stars so that the map can show him the way. But then again, this is an action movie, and so we need another chase. In come the dredge.
The dredge.
It's the timing of it. The introduction of the dredge is always so conveniently tropey. It's ridiculous. It's like
Yes.
Kale, Mr. Cabbage, has been successfully hidden for like, what is he, in his 20s?
Oh, yeah, he's 15 years later. He must have been like 8,
he's been
8
hidden.
when he was
Yeah,
captured.
15 years he's been hidden. Then the captain finds him. They get to talk for about 5 minutes, and then the dredge find him. And it's like, oh, well, that's convenient, isn't it? Once again, they go lose everybody, and then the dredge turn up again at exactly the moment to keep pushing the plot along.
But would you say that obviously when you're putting a film towards children, you've got to keep their attention.
Exactly.
Where
it's forgivable.
Yeah, as an adult, you can sit down and you can sit through a monotone 15-minute talking piece between two characters and go, "Oh wow, that was amazing Oscar-winning acting."
Yeah.
A child goes, "I am bored. Give me something else. Here's some laser blasting. Yes, explosions. People are dying in this film." They're like,
I mean, I don't know.
my God.
I don't know how much of a sacrifice it would have been to have like a kind of cut, different scene, different time. Oh, and now they're coming. I mean, in Star Wars, they just do it with a kind of like screen wipe, don't they? Oh,
yeah.
And then you're like in a different area, a different scene. And they do a little bit of that where you're like, oh, like the lead character's just about to get shot. And then they pan away to the activities of two of the other characters.
Yeah.
And so they do that time trickery when it's convenient, but they just go like, all of a sudden the dredge turn up, and that's how they then move the plot along and get you to another scene, and they have the cool chase scene and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Set up the action pieces very quickly and very lazily, I would say. But I mean, like you say, it's a kid's film. It's self-aware enough that it knows what it's doing. You play along, don't you? You do actually get
that
into
brings
it.
me to Kale and Akima getting captured because they get taken aboard the dredge mothership, and you kind of think, oh, typical tropey. They're going to try and torture Kale. They're going to try and convince him to give over the map. They're going to do all these evil things. They don't. They literally have control over all types of energy, which kind of just flip him all over the place until they manage to stick him in a point and go, shine the map.
Yeah.
It's over there. We don't need him anymore.
Did you ever think that was like terribly wasteful?
No.
Way of shining a map up on.
No, I don't know whether it was. I think it was a representation for the audience to see what the machines what the dredge were doing.
Yeah,
I don't think they were literally shining a map out into the cosmos. I think it was just was what the energy is seeing.
It's for me. It's to see the fact that the dredge are too powerful for the human race. You know, we've seen them get shot and they just grow back their arms. We see their ships are.
But we already knew that because they blew up the entire Earth.
Yeah, but it's also it's to keep that mind going because we've already travelled 15 years.
And also, they're so powerful that their system of imprisonment can be defeated by putting your fingers on it and putting your fingers together.
Well, I mean,
Woo!
we're looking at like
so
an electrical force field. You know, if you get 2 points, you know, Kale obviously realizes because he's a lot smarter than the average human.
That is
you know.
possibly one of the most dumbest parts of the movie.
Really? He uses the same thing to get inside one of the ships.
Exactly.
You know,
that whole scene there where he's picked up by the dredge, separated from everybody, and then finds a way to escape. The escaping is ridiculous.
But what if, right, I'm just going to throw this out there.
I just rolled my eyes and go, I'm just going to try and ignore
what if he is the only person to have escaped with that knowledge? What if other people had realised it when they've been captured by the dredge, but the dredge have killed them? And so the knowledge has never got out into the universe that is a major weakness and a flaw in the dredge's great energy, you know, plan.
I would have thought that if you were spending all that energy to design and create a system designed expressly for containing prisoners, that it would work better than that.
Yes, but I also bring up the argument that sometimes the most powerful people have an ego and they overlook like the tiniest things, i.e. Star Wars with an exhaust vent on the Death Star.
But that was designed in deliberately by a saboteur.
Retrospectively,
yeah.
but also the guy who was in command of the Death Star should have gone, what's this exhaust vent? Oh, we need it to vent some of the exhaust from the reactor. Don't you think it's a bit of a weakness, just like the energy shield in Titan After Hour? No, it'll be fine. Oh, okay, best carry on then.
Can you imagine if Star Trek's force fields were the same?
Oh yes, no. See, Star Trek doesn't fuck around.
Yeah. In almost all, if you've got an electrified energy force field that's so powerful it can stop matter going through it, then usually when you touch that, it at least burns you or does something. Do you know what I mean? Like, kicks you back from the wall.
Would you have preferred it if he just licked his finger and then put it on?
Yeah, you know, found something in his pockets or about his clothes or something.
Oh my god, it's a kid's film!
Some means of overcoming.
Sorry, kids, we're going to have to extend this for an hour because Kale has to work out how to break out of this force field because it's completely impenetrable.
Well, speaking of Death Stars, did anybody else see the Death Star?
Where was it?
When they go to the New Bangkok.
Yeah.
Oh, the salvagers.
There's loads of little Star Wars Easter eggs.
Is there?
Yes,
I must have missed that one.
Some of the production team and the animators on this film, I believe, worked on the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
And so they did drop in a few Star Wars Easter eggs. Of course, the Death Star has 2 small appearances on the New Bangkok sort of flotilla, the station.
Yeah.
And also there is a direct Star Wars quote when the ship won't start and Akima says, "Shall I get out and push?" It's like,
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that kind of annoys me about the film is, you know, they've rescued Akima and Kale has escaped from the dredge ship. I do prefer Akima's moment to Kale's because obviously she's in that capsule and the guys are about to eat her, and then the 3 crew members come up and find her, and she's actually, you know, stood there with a stick, like, where the hell have you been? But they get to the flotilla and they realise Akima and Kale realise Corso has been working for the dredge. So obviously it answers Geoff's question of why did the dredge keep turning up, and that's because Corso has been giving them the information. We'd also find out later that Preed is in on the idea as well. But it's the fact that Akima and Kale get left behind on the survivors flotilla. And Corso has gone off. He's like, we don't need them. We know where the Titan is. We're going to head off to the Ice Nebula. And Kale's just like, well, we're stuck. Hey, look, there's a ship. I'm going to fix it in like the quickest time ever. And we get a bit of a montage with music, which
oh yeah,
you
they went all full out montage.
Oh, full on montage. Kale is literally everywhere, like, yeah, you fix this. No, you're fixing it wrong. Do it like this. Okay, you need to fix this. No, you're doing it all wrong. You need to fix it like this. Akima, feed me a sandwich. You need to fix this.
For me, it was the cringiest moment in the film with the music, and I was like, oh, really? Montage? You need to montage this ship together? Fair enough.
Yeah.
There's a mutual agreement between you, the viewer, and the makers of it, that they're just going to move this story along,
Yeah.
and they're just going to, have this trope so that they can get to the next bit. And it's one of the few movies that pulls it off in a way that it doesn't really piss me off. It's almost like, yeah, all right, we're cutting corners here, but come on, like
You don't want to sit here and watch them repair
Look
a
at the
ship.
rest of it. We're still entertaining you, right?
Yeah.
And they are. That is the main thing. Like it is still fun that when they're doing it, and the montage, it did make you cringe a bit. But it did also make me laugh because it was a so bad it's good moment. Really.
Yeah, and Akima and Kale would get in their ship and race after the Valkyrie, which has found the ice nebula. And like we said before, I mean this moment's brilliant with the CGI ice crystals, all the sound effects of it cracking.
I was about to say the film won a couple of awards for its sound and animation.
Yeah,
but the imagery is fantastic. For animation, it really gives you a sense of scale and size of these ice formations compared to the size of these tiny craft that they're flying around in. And when they're smashing up against each other, you feel like the weight of those ice crystals floating around, and you know that if they hit any one of those, adios muchachos. And so it does kind of turn into a bit of a Enter the Dragon kind of moment, the Hall of Mirrors, as the two ships are flying around each other, and they can't tell who's who because there's all these reflections coming off all the ice formation. I thought that was a great moment. I kind of like the fact that on the scanner they're like, it's behind us. No, they're over there. No, they're over there.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's within this ice nebula that they find the Titan project, and we find out that Kale's father has died and is unable to fulfill the promise of meeting up with Kale. But we realise that inside Titan, there is just the DNA strands of pretty much everything on Earth. But
Titan is a machine designed to create a whole nother planet.
Yeah.
A living, breathing planet.
Yeah, it's like a massive Noah's Ark of all this information. But they need an energy source to power it. And it brings me back to Kale, where Kale's like, hey, I know of an energy source that we can get hold of. What, Kale? The dredge. And you're like, oh, really? How did I not see that coming at all? But it's the fact that everything that's going on here as well. You've got Corso being betrayed by Preed attempting to kill Sithith and Goon, and then when they all start fighting among each other, Preed gets his neck broken.
Yeah,
and you're like, whoa.
It was one of those moments where Preed kind of has them all at gunpoint. And he's like, now it's time to explain my grand plan. And then we cut back to the crew on the other ship. Just enough time to come back here just to watch Preed get taken down. It was like, oh.
He goes, the dredge are going to sort me out with whatever I want and my life to make sure all three of you are dead. And then he just stands there. At that point I went, so go bang, 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 and that's it, job done, isn't it? You need them dead, just kill them.
What a negative ending for a movie.
It cuts away, cuts to the other two, and then there's like the time shift, and he's still dicking about waving his gun around when he could have just gone bang, bang, bang. Done.
Yeah, I felt it was a waste as well when you had, obviously, you had Goon injured and he's, John Leguizamo's dragging out this fucking death sequence. He's like, I need to sleep. And you're like, oh no, Goon. And then Goon comes back later and he's like, I've rested. And I'm like,
sleep now.
did the animators just go, right, we need to bring him back because we know people are going to like him, over the rest of these characters?
He's the funniest character.
Yeah. I mean, Corso has his redemption as well. Kale attempts to save his life. And Corso kind of realizes then that, everything he was doing for himself was selfish. Where Kale had started off selfish and now is wanting to help everybody, put his life on the line. And Corso's thinking, well, that's what he'd forgotten, I suppose.
Yeah.
Something that he'd missed. And it just, big action sequence again. You've got those terrible guns on the side of the Titan. They're like, get the guns! Yeah! Oh, we're all out.
The turrets which just got shot off.
Yeah.
After killing... They basically killed one dredge for one turret. That was the thing I worked out.
Yeah, that's how that worked out. But they managed to repair the circuit breakers. The dredge fire up their ultimate weapon. It fires into the Titan, and the Titan reverses the polarity, I suppose, as Star Trek would put it, and uses the energy from the dredge ship to power itself up and the surrounding ice crystals to create water as well.
It uses that power to melt all the ice crystals to create the atmosphere or the...
Yeah.
Create everything, yeah.
They basically create a whole new planet Earth.
The only thing I don't understand is where all the rock comes from. Like...
that whole sequence, the creating Earth from the Titan ship sequence.
Yeah.
You just have to suspend all disbelief because it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Well, I mean,
it's a gigantic laser which can destroy an entire planet, and you have watched an entire planet explode off the back of this laser beam, and yet a tiny little metal construction ship, which is a fraction of the size of the planet, is somehow capable of, one, absorbing the entirety of that blast.
The energy, yeah.
So this Titan was built before the Earth was destroyed, so they had the technology to overpower the dredge already, basically. So that whole sequence is just quite annoying, because then also they have the power off the back of that energy to create an entire planet, and just from like a kind of like kind of magic explosion.
Right, yeah.
Also, the Titan sort of disappears, but in the Titan was all these banks of delicate genetic material that needed to be like carefully put together, animals created. But that all just happened in a sort of explosion.
But we're in the 31st century. We don't know. We don't even know why the dredge were attacking in the first place. Maybe the Titan project, obviously.
There's a lot of questions unanswered, actually.
Well, I like to think that maybe when they created the Titan project, they realizes there was this energy source that they could use, that it could create a whole new planet as long as the things were prepared in the right way. I mean, he had to get him into an ice nebula. I like to think that the ice nebula had an effect on the Titan and the energy from the planet
of
the ship.
Of the original Earth?
No,
it wasn't.
No, he flies off to hide the Titan. But I think he must have realized that he needed the energy source, which was the dredge. And I like to think that the dredge found out about this and thought, fuck you, you're not using us to power this whole new machine, so we're going to wipe you out. So in a way, the dredge aren't really the bad guys. The humans are.
What?
Well, like I said, what if Kale's father created the Titan project to feed off this energy source, which the dredge just happened to be made out of it?
No.
But why? We don't know why the dredge attacked.
That's the point I'm making. Is the Titan is technology which is able to defeat the vast energy source of the dredge.
Exactly.
So why didn't they use that to stop them from blowing up Earth, instead of going and hiding a machine to create a new one 15 years later?
Because I've just realised it. Because halfway through writing this film, somebody went, "Yeah, this ain't gonna work. Let's just rewrite that, shall we?" And it's the dredge that powers it. There we go. Nobody's gonna question that.
Yeah, I mean the whole thing is just like a gigantic plot hole.
Still, good film.
I've got quite a few memorable moments in the film. I really like the sequence when they're flying and they find like the space dolphins. They're like the jellyfish.
Yeah.
And
manta rays.
Space whales.
Yeah. And he's like, they're good luck. And like that sequence where he's learning to fly.
Yeah,
It's just like, it's tropey, but I like it. It's you're bonding with the crew and
the animation's
and learning
nice.
the world. And the animation's nice too. Of course, I love the intro. Just watching all of the ships escaping Earth and getting smashed in the debris as the explosion takes them out. I thought that was a really, really good, shocking opening.
Right with you there. They start out really well.
Yeah, it's a
really
very strong,
exciting scene.
Yeah. I also love the ice crystals and that chase sequence. I thought that was great. The gas planet with the bird creatures again. Always remember that. And and I love Goon when he's licking his hand and telling him what he had for dinner. Just always remember that part.
And this. What is this?
That's lunch.
Oh, it's lunch. Spaghetti derivative, meatballs, sort of anyway, and Caldor droppings. Who ate it before you did?
Hey.
Oh, and I also always laugh because I always remember that he calls the planet Bob.
Yeah.
Planet Bob?
You can call it
Why
anything
not?
he wants, yeah.
That's such a Whedon style joke, isn't it?
My favourite scenes, I like the sequence at the beginning where Kale hits the front of the Valkyrie, and it's the first time he meets Akima. And it's the way he says before it happens. He's like, "Oh, no ship's ever going to come here," and obviously he turns, he sees
One
the
in
ship.
1,000.
Yeah, there's the one.
That would be the
Comes
one.
off his bike, but it's the way the camera pans back, and you're like, "Here's the vastness of space. That's how tiny you are, bouncing along the nose of that ship." That just gives you the scale of it.
Yeah.
And like you said, they start off well. Obviously, the film will, teeter later on, but that moment I thought, yeah, I'm getting the scale of this. He's this tiny little guy in this vast universe. The Gaul planet and the whole chase sequence as well. Using the hydrogen trees to blow them up. I love the way that the Gaul are there to help. And they're flying. Then one of them will get killed, but there's another one just to pick them back up again and fly off. An intelligent guard. I think that joke's brilliant. When Akima has been captured and the crew of the Valkyrie are attempting to break in to find her, Preed comes up with this whole plan of how he's going to sweet talk the guard, and the guard just stands there going, "Nope, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong."
And you're wearing bed sheets.
And the guard gets taken out anyway, but it's just Preed just stand there saying, "An intelligent guard, I didn't see that coming."
That's another Whedon-like joke, isn't it? Where they're like,
and the Ice Nebula as well. I think I just really like the Ice Nebula mainly because all the animation's nice, but the fact that I can see it there, that somebody has worked within hand-drawn animation for the ship and the crew, and then outside of the screen of the ship, you've got all the CGI crystals. Like we said, showing the reflections of the other ships, the close proximity, the sound, just all the cracking. Brilliant sequence.
There is two other moments I remember now as well, and it's one of the darker moments, and it's when Kale's asleep, and the alarms go off, and his door opens, and the dredge are right outside, and they step in, and they blast him dead, and then he wakes up, and you're like, whoa. That was a pretty dark nightmare in the middle of this kids' film.
Yeah.
But it's also, there was another sequence when the dredge turn up and the gravity gets taken off, and you can see all the food floating everywhere.
Yeah.
And I love the cook, who's desperately trying to get his food back in, and also then escape. And eventually the dredge find him, and he's kind of backed up into a corner, and the dredge shoot him.
Hi, they went right down there. They came in my kitchen and bullseye.
For me, like you say, there are key scenes. I love the opening scene. Straight away, I was like, "Oh, that's a really good start."
Yeah.
Kind of reminded me a little bit of Mass Effect 3. That moment.
The Reapers.
Where
I started
Reapers
thinking of
come along.
Reapers. Yeah.
Like the whole fleeing a planet that is about to be destroyed reminded me of Riddick.
Yeah.
As well. But I mean the overall sort of feel of it was very much captures for me the zeitgeist of the time, which is like when we were playing StarCraft and we were playing things like Command and Conquer, Red Alert, that sort of thing, and it was all kind of very... It was a moment of time when CGI and computer games were really beginning to blossom, and then there was some classic sci-fi computer games coming out.
Yeah.
And you can also see the kind of influence of that kind of art making going into this film, and they were trying to bring some of the sort of more out there sci-fi elements that you would see in gaming, and they're bringing it to the big screen, the Hollywood.
Yeah.
So in that sort of sense, it's very experimental, and I can absolutely appreciate that. I didn't actually watch this film at the time in 2000s, but as soon as I started watching it, I was sort of like brought back to that time.
Yeah.
Because there's so much in that movie that is of that time. And it is, you can clearly see that it's being made by people who want to try something new, try something a bit different. And they are pushing the boundaries in certain areas. And, you know, like some of those key scenes, it must have been taken a long time to do, to get right and to look as good as they do. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to appreciate about it, even though it is deeply flawed.
Yeah.
I definitely recommend Titan A.E. I kind of always recommended it ever since I got the VHS tape when the film came out. It was just like, I'd never heard of this. Let's watch it. Let's tell people about it. Anyone else seen this film? And I can't wait to see him come out of retirement and work on the Dragon's Lair feature-length movie.
Nice.
Which of course he's co-working with Gary Oldman. Gary Goldman. Titan A.E. is a funny film. It's a cartoon, but at the same time it has adult themes.
Yeah.
It's a silly adventure film with great sci-fi and some poor sci-fi. It has, you know, dodgy montages and some questionable music, but the actual sound score, the actual soundtrack for the film is really good. The sound effects are good. The voice acting is top talent, with a couple of dips here and there.
Yeah.
Throughout it. I love the ship designs, I love the planet designs, I love the alien feel to it. I love how it makes me think of Firefly, especially when you go to New Bangkok and you see sort of, you know, the fringes of space and what's become of humanity under this great oppression. And once it's finished, you feel good, you feel satisfied.
Yeah.
And it's, yes, I definitely recommend Titan A.E.
I recommend it as well. If you're a Don Bluth fan, you know, if you grew up watching his animated films, you've never seen Titan After Earth, definitely watch it. If you're a sci-fi fan, then this has to be on your list. It's a great sci-fi movie. It is an animation. It is aimed at children, but we were all children once upon a time, you know, and for me, it's one of those Saturday afternoon, Sunday afternoon movies that you can just put on. You know, if you're suffering from a hangover and you don't have children, stick it on. You'll just relax and fall asleep to it and have a good time. If you've got children, stick it on for them, you know, because it might open the doorway for the other great Don Bluth classics. You don't always have to stick with Disney. You don't always have to stick with Pixar. You can delve outside the box every now and again just to see what other people have done.
For me, it's a very difficult film to recommend for me. I mean, because it is a fun no-brainer. That's what it is. And
yeah.
if you like fun no-brainers, then absolutely it's for you. I think also if you have an interest in animation, like, you know, either the Japanese or Western style or both, yeah, you should watch this film, you know, because it is absolutely sort of demonstrating the advancement of ideas at that time, you know,
yeah.
and we've gone on now. I mean, obviously all animation is all done in CGI, even if it's a hand-drawn style.
Yeah.
But I mean, that all of that developed from these moments here, where, you know, CGI was just beginning to get good enough, but it wasn't quite good enough, you know. So you know, it's quite interesting to see what they were doing there, and quite interesting to see. So I mean, yeah, I recommend it as a curiosity piece and also as a fun no-brainer. But don't expect too much out of it, you
yeah.
know, because it is just a bit silly, it's a bit cheesy, it's a bit lazy on the writing. You know, it's not a masterpiece by any standard. So I wouldn't even call it Marmite, you know, because I don't think you would necessarily absolutely adore it unless there's something very specifically about this film that you love, or you're a huge Joss Whedon fan, you love everything he's done, or something like that, you know, any touch of Joss Whedon, or the animators from Dragon's Quest or whatever it was called, the Dragon's Lair.
Yeah, Dragon's Lair.
You know, if you're huge fans of their work, especially, then obviously you have to. But you probably already know about this film if you are. So, to the layman, I recommend it. You've got to watch it at least once because it was a cool slice of the 2000 era.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
An intelligent guard. Didn't see that one coming.